Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Our Thread, the podcast, bringing our content to you. I'm All It Is, and I'm here with my Thetans. And today, we bring you episode 15, Se7en versus the Master. Two movies bringing to the surface and making public the 7 deadly sins. In the movie Se7en, the 7 sins are presented in a sadistic way, while the Master brings people's regrets and sins to the surface with a form of therapy called processing, which is based off what they call in Scientology auditing. But before we get into the matchup, a special shout out to tonight's sponsor, DistroKid. DistroKid is a service for musicians that puts your music on the streaming platforms and allows you to collect all the earnings you receive easily. For packages as low as $20 a year, you can upload all your music whenever you like. And if you're not a musician, spread the word to your friends and family that are. Beware and I have been using DistroKid for a few years, and we're very pleased with their services. So tonight, we have another David Fincher battle because our thread member Cap successfully replaced Donnie Darko with the Master using his mulligan. And I'm excited for this show. But before we go, here's that intro music by Beware. Let's go.
Good morning!
Morning!
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Well, it's very, homey.
What? Are you kidding? We got us a family here.
I hope you realize how you've hurt my feelings.
I'm afraid you're just too darn loud. Next, please.
Just take it easy, man.
I'm perfectly confident.
Yeah, waving the fucking gun around?
Calmer, you are.
Look, I made a mistake, all right? It didn't make any difference anyway.
Hey, I'm letting it go. But don't say it doesn't matter. Every line matters.
Get off my back!
Don't fuck with my plan!
And like that, he's gone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Our Thread podcast, bringing our content to you, featuring All It Is.
It's official, old buddy. Who has been.
Beware.
From then on, he was known as Benny the Jet Rodriguez.
The Doc.
You're the doc, Doc.
The Pep.
Oh, if you already know the answers to your questions, then why ask? Big fuck!
And myself, Savage.
I'm 6'5", 220, and there's two of them.
Homework's in. Let's begin. I saw two great movies this week, that's for sure. But let's find out if Beware thinks the same thing because he just watched The Master for the first time.
Replacing Donnie Darko was a bold move on the Cap's part, no doubt. I was a little shocked when he did it because that's definitely a movie that we've all kind of grown up on. But he replaced it with a movie that I hadn't seen that I've had on my short list for years, and I was happy to finally see it. And you know, The Master is a movie that it's a long movie. It's a feature for two leads to basically steal the show with a psychological drama, I suppose, that you really have to kind of sit with, not kind of overthink it, kind of just let it happen and take it for what it is. And, you know, by the end of it, you can kind of understand where they're coming from, and that depending on your own personal views, you can take the movie one way or the other. I think they have a specific intention.
Can I ask you a question, Beware? If you didn't know the movie was based off of Scientology, would this still be a great film?
Honestly, I didn't really know that. I didn't know too much of the details. I thought it might have been based off a true story. I didn't really know a lot of the mirror of it, if you will.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's interesting because Savage and I were talking about that and like whether or not it's important to know that, I guess, going into it. Not knowing it, I think it's absolutely fine. But what I was saying to Savage is that this movie kind of like slowly reveals itself as far as like what it is and what it's about, because it's really about Freddie Quill.
Agreed.
And it's like more of a character study of the two of them and their friendship that they develop. But you don't know what the fuck. You wouldn't know what the fuck is going on. And I think that's part of the draw to it for me, is that it kind of like, it does draw you in. It's funny how, you know, how they end up meeting is just by pure coincidence. He just drunkenly ends up on his boat and wakes up and doesn't know where the fuck how he got there.
We also, just to interject, we also have an impression about Scientology. For the most part, scientific minds agree that this is a pyramid scheme times 2, a scam, that it's based off of other stuff. But I'm also into the biopic aspect of things where there is something significant in the character, in the man that is able to start his own religion. That being said, if you had known that going in, you're going to think that Philip Seymour Hoffman, the master's character, Dodd, is fake. He's a scammer, and it's not all based off that. And that's kind of what I like about it, is you get a story about the idea, the creativity that actually brought something so dramatic that came into something so substantial in the world we live in. Both Beware and Cap have gave great points about why knowing, if you don't know that it's based off Ron Hubbard and Scientology, that you still get a great movie. Savage, I know this is one of your favorite movies, or a movie you really appreciate. What do you think about it? Is it important that you know that this is based off of L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology, or is it just
Yeah, I think that it doesn't necessarily need to be about it, and I think probably the reasoning why they couldn't actually make it like a biopic on L. Ron Hubbard
come after you.
Yeah, is the litigiousness of Scientology is a pretty formidable force.
I think there's also a creative advantage to doing it the way that they did it too.
You're
sure.
allowed to. You're allowed to. You can't get sued for stuff like that.
Just like in the way that Tarantino does, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or Inglourious Bastards, kind of takes, like, I mean, it's a revisionist history, but it also is purposefully vague. And I think the story stands alone for at least how Lancaster Dodd and Freddie Quell,
two fantastic actors,
two of my favorites,
do any role, whether it be true or false. But also, just so we know that this story is based a lot off of Scientology, and the fact that I say processing and auditing is basically the same thing, and there's stuff that is quoted directly from what auditing is in Scientology. Let's bring it to Doc, because I know Doc is a very scientific man. What did you think about this film, Doc? I know you were a little bit bummed out that Donnie Darko got snatched out.
Sorry, man. I actually wasn't paying attention. I pretty fucked up off this jug juice.
Are you trying to kill me?
No, man. So I do like The Master. And I really enjoyed it. I watched it. I think my wife and I watched it at the beginning of COVID, because we had actually never seen it before, and then watched it again this week. And it's a great fucking movie, man. I will say, so I did doing some research, is that Paul Thomas Anderson actually denies that it's strictly based on Scientology. He that said, though, it's obviously based on cults like Scientology. But he actually got the idea 12 years before making the movie, after filming Magnolia with Tom Cruise. And he actually screened the movie to Tom Cruise in a private kind of screening. I see Savage shaking his head.
That's awesome.
Did you know that?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. No, I didn't know that. That's
because
awesome.
He would be pretty sensitive.
Yeah.
He got very angry. And the story goes that, like, Cruise was upset. They haven't divulged the details of it, but they got kind of heated, and I guess the part that Tom Cruise didn't like the most, Dodd's son Val, the fact that the part that he says, you can't tell he's making it all up, and that's the part that Cruise got upset about. When it's actually known that L. Ron Hubbard's son has actually said that about his dad, and so it was kind of based off that. Cruise did not like that at all. I did enjoy The Master, and I've got a lot more to say about that. But we haven't really touched on Se7en yet either. And I think this is actually a really great matchup for Se7en, is this movie, The Master. And I really enjoyed watching Se7en, man. I actually, I hadn't seen this in years. I know it's like a common thing that we always say on here, but it's true.
You know what it blew it for me is I checked the cast, because I like to know the characters' names when I'm taking notes. And I said that I wouldn't have known. And also, too, who can say here that a lot of people, I know Cap was quoting it. I didn't remember the ending until
Oh,
So I did know the ending.
You didn't remember the ending?
So hold on.
Right,
I'm flipping it on you. Instead of me giving my reaction to it, I'm going to flip it on you right now, and I want to hear what your thoughts about Seven are.
I do have a short-term memory. That being said, I have been reading a lot of books lately that are based off these films, and you can't forget certain things. But when you see it, sometimes you're remembering it in the process of watching it. And that's what happened with Seven with me. I remembered what was about to happen, but still I was guessing. And I like that. And I can say it's fine to be removed from a film for 5 to 6 years and not remember the ending completely. But all I needed was Cap, I think last week, saying, "What's in the box?" And it wasn't relevant to me. And then that shit fucked me up so much. So I'm going to talk about Seven really quick. We have one of, I think, my favorite impressionable actors, Brad Pitt, in a movie rookie year. And he's kind of corny. He's cheesy. His lines are not that good at times. But at the end of the movie, his character arc, he shows that, wait a second, this guy can be a good actor. Even when he can't look at Kevin Spacey. He's looking sideways. And he's about to make that decision and be one of the deadly sins. I think that's where he actually showed that he was more than a face. He was more than a body, best body in the business. He's more than hair.
True that.
Debatably best hair in the business. And he was actually going to be a great actor that was going to last our times. And I don't think there's a harder hitting movie that is actually real. We've seen Zodiac, folks. We've seen some other stuff, but this one, hey, if Seven was going against Zodiac, not to go on a tangent, I think Seven wins. Even though it's not based off truth.
Fincher versus Fincher. I want to comment real quick. Sorry, whoever I just cut off, about Brad Pitt and him being cheesy. He's totally playing that. He's playing the point of view. I thought the same thing when I was watching this at first. He's playing the point of view from Morgan Freeman. It's almost like you're watching the movie from Morgan Freeman's point of view for the first bit of the movie, maybe throughout the whole movie, actually, as I'm saying that out loud. And Brad Pitt changes and evolves over the course of the movie, and he gets dead fucking serious after he gets shot at, and he's standing in the hallway all bloody, and he's debating whether or not to kick in the door. That's where he flips, and it's like, oh, okay, this is a different character than
more than hair in the body.
Yeah, I love that point. Beware.
I want to give one little piece. So the first time I saw Seven, I was in 8th grade, and Detective Mills, Brad Pitt's character, didn't seem cheesy because he seemed like a fucking 8th grader or a high school kid, the way that he talks, and he let an R word slip, he let a couple the bad F word slip, that kind of the way that he talked, the way that he acted, the way that he kind of approached life. So the first time I see it, and I told my parents that I was sick in the middle of the school week, and my dad said, "You know what, I'll just stay home with you and we'll watch movies today." So we watched 2 movies for the first time, movies that my dad had already seen. So it was Usual Suspects and Seven. Yeah.
2 of the best endings of the 90s.
That's why Kevin Spacey is Savage's American Beauty.
For sure. He is my American Beauty.
If my son really isn't sick, I'm going to make him sick.
Right, exactly right. And he did. So it was my first time seeing these movies. Obviously, it had a huge impact on my life. But when it came around to watching Seven, my dad had taped it from an HBO free preview. So back in the day, they used to give out it'd be like a week of free programming on HBO, and it wouldn't be scrambled and whatever. The way that the free previews work is they'll tell you what time the movie starts, but usually before the movie, leading up to when the movie actually starts, there's a decent amount of infomercials. Hey, order HBO from Comcast and blah, blah, blah. So the movie ends up starting about 20 minutes later. My dad had set a timer on the VCR to record between 2 and 4 a.m. or whatever it was, without taking into account that the movie was going to be on a lagged start time. When the delivery van shows up to the desert and Morgan Freeman is given the box, the movie ended. And it left me screaming to my dad, "What's in the box? What's in the box?"
Oh, what's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
The same way that Detective Mills is doing it.
Savage Pit.
And my dad, embarrassed as all hell, because this was kind of a thing that he had done before, where he'd cut off movies because he was a little on the cheaper side. And we never actually had HBO legitimately. It was only like during these times he'd record every fucking movie that came on. I'm screaming that, and I'm saying, "What's in the box?" And my dad just embarrassingly, like under his breath, just said, "Gwyneth Paltrow's head."
Oh shit!
Oh my god!
And
spoiler alert, folks. There's only one reason you're here. It's because you know what's in the fucking box. Wow, folks. Hey, this hurts you, and you love this movie more because of that, unfortunately.
For sure.
Let me just go off that and say, I think when you make up a story about murders that is based off truth, you truly do get to use to your advantage something wonderful, and that is suspense and timing and all that. Although we have seen this in true stories, this is not based off a true story. In epic proportions, it takes you through something you completely know what's going to go on. Oh, you have somebody retiring. Oh, okay, 7 days. Oh, there's a murder. Oh, obviously.
Great. I love that aspect of it.
By the end, you're not going to guess that he's going to fill out the next two. You can't see his confidence in the back of the car. We have a great movie here, but what I want to say is we have that $1 million voice. We have that body and that mannerism man, Brad Pitt, that's going to turn into one of our favorite actors. We can all agree upon. He is a wonderful person. But I'm going to go back and talk about characters, and I'm going to cut it off from Seven, and I'm going to talk about the late, great Philip Seymour Hoffman. And I'm going to talk about one of the best times in his life. He showed that he was one of the best actors that would ever live and that have ever lived, because he was the most vulnerable he's ever been. And if you want to see pain, you want to see suffering, you want to see what makes artists sometimes great, you go watch that movie and you see it in the back of his eyes. He is suffering. He needed auditing. He needed processing. He needed so much help that all he could do is put all of that energy into his creative drive, and it made him the best ever. Then who is he up against? One of the most vulnerable, patient actors ever, Joaquin Phoenix, who is selfishly one of the best actors ever, and humbly his problem for being selfish is that he doesn't want to overact or do too much stuff because he has to dive into the character. And you know, one thing about him is that Joaquin Phoenix said that he will not ever be affected by a role. It'll never take him down to make him do something bad. He wasn't affected by the Joker. He broke that curse. But Philip Seymour Hoffman, he put pain and suffering into this role, in joy and love, and you can see his farewell. And that's why I have to say right now that this is my favorite Philip Seymour Hoffman movie that's ever been made, because he is doing everything he's ever tried to give us, and it's beautiful. And he's portraying a man that, if it's L. Ron Hubbard, this was a man that convinced millions and millions of people of his creativity, of his specialness, like a fan to an artist. It's unfair to like Michael Jackson as much as you do Lady Gaga, have all your monsters or whatever. You don't care about the person, you care about what they achieved. And that's what he did. L. Ron Hubbard manipulated people. Philip Seymour Hoffman tricked people into not knowing how much suffering he was going into, because he was that great of an actor. Best actor of all time, possibly.
Goat.
Yeah, it's crazy that you're saying that, because
that was awesome.
Honestly, this movie might have actually been the movie that killed him, in a weird way, because I hate to say that so kind of poignantly, but he was abstaining from alcohol, drugs for 23 years. And actually at the wrap party of this movie was the first time he got off the wagon. And he imbibed in alcohol and that basically started his re-alcoholism and addiction at the wrap party.
See, that's wild. That's incredible, because I would have thought for sure he was using during this movie, and it was part of the reason that let him play the impossible. But Doc, what you're telling me is that it was after this movie is when he relapsed?
Yeah, tragic. And this is arguably one of his greatest performances. It's funny that we see him in supporting but kind of bit roles, and even in this, he's actually billed as a supporting actor in this role. Joaquin is the lead, but we see him in these other on our list that we've watched him in. They've been kind of supporting, but we see the brilliance, we see how amazing he is. And this is one of the first or one of the ones where we really get to see him kind of all his talent, and him really, it is a lead in my opinion. And yeah, it was one of the last, unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, Doc, really quick, not to put any pressure on it, because that's not it. It's not what it's about. But like, who was your favorite character of these two movies?
Yeah, I know I'm probably gonna be stealing it from other people.
That's fine. I think
so
that's
feel
fair
free
for
to, yeah. So feel free to jump in, but it is Freddie Quill. I think the most. I was gonna say complex character. He's really not that complex, but he's in every.
Definitely not complex.
Yeah. I think that there's more depth to Freddie Quill than we give him credit for, and I think that you can't blame him for his circumstances, and you can't blame him, like, he didn't choose to be an alcoholic. He didn't choose to go down the route that he did. He's a product of kind of his environment, and he's a World War II vet with post-traumatic stress syndrome, and he's coming back to a world that he doesn't feel like he belongs in, and he's got an addiction problem, but there's nobody there to help him, and he is making these really potent, drinks that he's addicted to and can't function without. And yeah, we see a little of his dereliction on the island, and we see a little bit of the weirdness, but like he's thrusted back into normal society and is expected to function normally. And the only person that starts to accept him at all is Philip Seymour Hoffman, and he clings to that. And I don't know, man. I think that to say that he made a decision or to say that he accepted who he is, I think that he's always trying to fight to become more than that. He's always trying to I don't think he knows who he is. And I think he's trying to find somebody to help him understand who he is. And yeah, man, I think there's more depth to him than
I think it happened though too. His character arc, and what happened in the story is that Dodd, the master, actually helped him in a form of therapy where they actually let him send out everything that was wrong with him, and then it allowed him to be who he truly was again after traumatic shit. And I think that's is that not it? Did he not like kind of get a type of treatment that he would have been ailed with his whole life?
I don't think he got the treatment that he needed, just like how, Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, Lancaster Dodd, said that, his shit can cure leukemia. I think that he was trying to treat him, but he didn't know how, he didn't know what he'd do. He needed him to feel like he could treat somebody and feel like he was important.
Let's just play tennis really quick, Doc, because I've researched Scientology and I don't agree with it at all. But one thing that I think the biggest thing that Hubbard tapped into was a series of getting people in a form of, some people can be, put in a trance by hypnosis. We know that that's actual study. Other people are not susceptible to it. I think what he found susceptibility to is to actually confess your sins, in a sense of like being in a form of a light mind control, but also to be in a safe space where you could actually do something. And he found a wonderful scientific tool, a spiritual tool. And unfortunately, he fucking made it into a pyramid scheme. He made it into a publicity stunt. He made it into a religion, which is not science. But I think processing and auditing is actually, if you research it, is a beautiful thing. It sounds like it's a good thing to do, a rapid type of therapy that can actually make an artist not be tormented. He was a tormented artist, and he was able to, from the master, to be less tormented by this process. And I think that was like, and I got to say, I'm just going to say it right now, favorite character, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Favorite scene was the processing scene. I love that. I think that's the best scene, and that actually was quoting from what they call the Columbia,
the Oxford capacity analysis, though it has no connection with Oxford University or any accredited institution, was
thing that's not actually, but they were actually unquoting from a Scientology pamphlet for auditing, which was the processing scene. But Doc, do you think that it's all unscientific and all a scam from the beginning?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Fair enough. but still, he wound up being your favorite character because he showed the vulnerability and the character arc and all that stuff he did. Freddy.
Yeah, and I don't think the Lancaster Dodd character would have been as great if he didn't have a character like Freddie Quill to use. Yeah,
I can agree with that. So Savage, why don't you chime in with the doc and say what your favorite character is? Because I know it's coming from the master.
Yeah, it kind of has to, at least from my point of view. It's going to be Lancaster Dodd. He's so charismatic, and when he's on screen, even when he's with Joaquin Phoenix, who's also one of my favorite actors, seeing them up against each other, I'm still drawn towards Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Savage, not to cut you off, can I guess your favorite scene in the movie, in The Master? Is it potentially when they're in jail? Is that even like top two? I'm just guessing.
Yes, it is top two. It's not the top scene that I put. That when I watched the movie the other night with Cap, he told me that when he breaks the toilet, that was like that was on the fly. That wasn't planned. That's a fucking move. Joaquin Phoenix is a ultra physical actor, and not in like a funny way, in like in a very deep, like brooding way. And seeing him do that was unreal. But I'm gonna follow you up with the same. It's the scene you were talking about, the processing scene.
Could you answer the next series of questions without blinking your eyes?
Yes.
Without fear and hesitation, answer as quickly as you can.
Sure.
And then my favorite line just from that one scene is when he says, "Are you lying?" "No." "Are you a liar?" "Yes." I love all that. I think that it's the best.
I just want to call out the fact that the Masters cast is out of control. With obviously the two leads, you've got Meth Damon, you got Mr. Robot, you got Amy Adams, and then you got Laura Dern. That's insane.
It's murder.
I always believe too, and I'll throw this right back to you, Beware, but I always believe like when you surround yourself with other great talent, you rise to that. And so when you have a cast like that, a core cast like that, I feel like all those actors and actresses are bringing their best each and every
A game.
Yep.
A game. And plus an A director. I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson is nothing to sneeze at either. He could probably pull those sorts in. And Meth Damon, also known as Fat Damon, also known as Jesse Plemons. Jesse Plemons is a fantastic actor, and he is so underrated.
He's in everything I love.
Can we just
he's
go
in
back?
so much good
is Meth
stuff.
Damon only in our thread, or is that known through the world, through all the folks out there?
Let me Google it real quick. And
we have a fact.
I think that's
fact check
something
on
that
Meth Damon.
we started saying.
Hey, let's go back to Beware though, really quick, so we can really talk about who is the best character through and through with these movies.
I can't debate that it's not either one of those, and I think ultimately it's a matter of maybe which movie you like best. And I think that in the opposing movie Se7en, you've got the two leads that are just equally as amazing. I mean, the characters aren't necessarily as deep, but you've got a 7-day window full of super anxiety that both of these characters are dealing with from completely different point of views since they're transitioning in and out respectively, and just completely different parts of their life, different walks of life, and the acting on both of their parts is just excellent. And I already kind of talked about Brad Pitt and how he kind of gives a performance that evolves throughout the movie, and he's just dialing it up at the end of the movie and downplaying himself at the beginning.
But that Somerset guy, Somerset
is just consistent, steady as a rock. Like, shout out Whispers, man. He's just so smooth throughout the whole movie, but also like conveying the anxiety. You are, I believe, seeing the movie more so through his point of view because he's kind of a narrator at certain points too, and you feel it, man. You really do. Like that movie, I was watching it through my laptop, and I'm like closing it, like making those screens smaller so I can only see a sliver of the movie at parts because I'm nervous, like a little kid, like watching through a hole in my blanket type thing.
I hear that. I'm just saying, what sin irked you out the most, Beware, with obviously Somerset being your favorite character?
Sloth. Sloth, definitely.
Sloth, because he's alive, folks.
So gross.
Hey,
Oh
when Sloth comes back to life, that got me so good. That's what I'm talking about. 6 years removed from a movie. I didn't know that Sloth was alive.
Jump scene.
Oh,
hey, you know what's
fantastic.
funny about that too? When they realize that he's alive and that guy,
Cocksucker's alive.
The guy gets down real close and goes, "You got what you deserved."
Yeah. So weird. That's actually a really weird quote. I don't get that.
He's still as hell to look forward
He's judging him, basically.
Quick
So
fact
weird.
about the Sloth character is that it took 14 hours to do the makeup for that character.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
They thought that Sloth was going to be the killer, folks. So Sloth had a record. He actually had a big record.
Right.
That's
He's
why
a
they were
petter ass.
editing. He was a petter ass.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, Cap, I need to know who your favorite character is and what movie it's going to come from, because and feel free to give your nod to Philip Seymour Hoffman, even if that is not your favorite character.
Sure, I will actually say that it is Lancaster Dodd's character that is my favorite. Watching this with Savage the other night, started to get pretty, I don't know, a little sentimental over Philip Seymour Hoffman, and this character, I feel like he just gets to really just let his acting chops
Don't know
shine.
shit about chop.
You know, he gets to yell, and he gets to be a this charismatic character, and he's a force to be reckoned with. And really wanted, I wanted to say that he is my favorite character, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about the relationship between Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt in Se7en. I think it's a movie that very much follows, I think, the model of the way that it was written. It was like, this happens, therefore this happens, therefore this happens, and you're following that step by step. The total, from beginning to end, the total movie is really engaging and exciting and mysterious and dark. And I think that you have Morgan Freeman's character trying to understand, like, why the fuck would you come here? You know, because he's this older person who's been on the job and seen lots of horrible shit and just kind of lost his faith in the goodness and humanity, where Brad Pitt's character, I think, wants to challenge himself. And I think that that's like, he's got kind of like a jockey mentality, I think. And I think that he, in that way, is more positive, has more positive outlook. So I think that he comes to this place to prove something to himself. That being said, I think, like, watching it now as opposed to watching it in high school, it's like you're kind of seeing Brad Pitt from Morgan Freeman's perspective a little bit more, where he's kind of like thinking he's like, he looks at him a lot like, he's like, I'm not going to bother trying to, like, talk you out of how you think, but, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know, that kind of look. Like, I don't have time to try to work on you.
He appreciates kind of like naive, blue collar, boots on the ground approach after a while. He's like, fuck it, I'm riding with this guy.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think that he does develop more respect for him throughout the movie. But at the beginning of the movie, he's like, could you please stop talking? And I love that. And he's got the
Morgan Freeman's character kind of reminded me of No Country for Old Men.
Great call.
Yes.
That is a good call.
Like changing of the guard. I'm getting too old for this. I don't know.
This is Danny Glover from Lethal Weapon, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Excuse me.
Yes. Beware.
Excuse me.
Why it is important.
Excuse me. Just want to do my
if you bring
scene.
someone out of a traumatic event back to the present time, no matter how carefully you do that.
Excuse me.
If you have not gone over
my
the
favorite
memory,
scene from The Master is when the guy cuts him off. And
some of this
tries
sounds
to
quite
prove
like
him wrong.
hypnosis.
And they both go into it, and I think that just really showcases both points of view in a really interesting way. And then you get
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
That got me.
Excuse me.
I thought
Excuse me?
Beware was. I thought I missed Beware on one of our topics here, and he was getting.
Excuse me.
He was getting upset with me.
Excuse
That's
me.
very, very good.
I like that too. Excuse me.
Let me just go to Se7en really quick. I really like the ending when Somerset says,
Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part.
Another thing too would be Morgan Freeman doing a little more foreshadowing, like he did in Shawshank Redemption. But in Seven, he says, if he tells Gwyneth Paltrow's character, if you have the chance to have that baby, after she tells him about the baby, spoil that kid every chance you get. And the fact that he says, if you have the chance to have that baby, making it not sound like it was her choice if she were not to have that baby, I thought gave it a little bit of a ooh when they're sitting in the diner.
I got two quotes, real quick ones from the master. One is where with Freddie Quill, when he's making his jug juice and he's sharing it with somebody and they say, "What's in it?" And he goes, "Secrets." Love that.
Yes.
And the other one that I have real quick is, again, it's between Freddie Quill and Lancaster Dodd. And it's where he brings him the Cools, the cigarettes. And, and Lancaster Dodd goes, "I like Cools, minty flavor." And apparently that scene, they had to reshoot it a couple times because they were cracking up at it.
I like Coles. The minty flavor. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Ever. What's the greatest thing ever?
Do it one more time.
Like Coles. The minty flavor. Fuck off.
You had it.
One more.
Couple good quotes from Seven are when the captain is just randomly sitting at the desk and he said, and it rings and he just picks it up, hangs it up and says, "This isn't even my desk."
It hangs it up.
I love that. I also loved when Brad Pitt says to Kevin Spacey at the end, "You're no Messiah, you're a movie of the week.
You're a fucking t-shirt at best."
Mills has some good quotes. "Just because this fucker's got a library card doesn't make him Yoda." I love that.
I love that too. Yep.
Probably my favorite one because it's like a really, you can feel it when he's saying it. And it's really kind of subtle too, is the helicopter pilot that's hovering over the scene at the end of the movie that's watching it go down after Brad Pitt shoots him. He's saying, he's like, "You gotta find a spot to land, find a spot to land." And then he says, "Somebody call somebody. Somebody call somebody." And he doesn't even know what to do. And he's just like, fuck, man.
Beware actually already brought it up a little bit. So I'll do a little bit of a deeper dive. And I know it's related to one of Cap's favorite scenes / quotes too. But I really feel like this was the fulcrum of the movie in a sense of like this, everything was kind of pivoting on this, it's a science versus kind of true belief. And you see this kind of confrontation between the scientists, like questioning Dodd and his beliefs and his practices. And is, I think, genuinely, he's kind of a little pompous the way he starts to bring it up a little bit, but is genuinely trying to have a conversation with him and to raise questions and ask and which I think we should all be willing to engage in. And you see it kind of hits a nerve with Lancaster Dodd, and you see him get really defensive, and you see him raise his voice, and you see him kind of insult the man. And there's a perfect quote where he says, his name's John Moore is the guy that's questioning him. He says, "Good science by definition allows for more than one opinion, doesn't it?" And Lancaster.
I'm sorry, you're unwilling to defend your beliefs in any kind of rational.
Oh, if you already know the answers to your questions, then why ask? Pig fuck.
And he's definitely feeling defensive. And then he follows it up, the John Moore guys. "Otherwise," he says, "you merely have the will of one man, which is the basis of a cult, is it not?" And to me, that's they're really calling this. They're calling the movement out, and they're calling it for what it is.
Well, that's the cool part about that scene is that, he's pretty used to keeping all of his people in isolation with him, and he's outside of that, and he gets challenged, and you can tell that he's being embarrassed by this man, you know.
And that's the thing, is like with good science or with something, is that you want people to try to criticize and prove you wrong, because that's how you know that you just strengthened it and for it to be something better, for it to be something even better. But when you start to defend a system, and when you start to create excuses for a system, and when you start to get followers that are believing you rather than the evidence in front of them, that's the basis of a cult. That's the problem. That's kind of what we're seeing, you know, in real life now, you know, with some, you know, the QAnon folks and things like that. That's what this is.
One scene that sticks out to me in Se7en, I will say, is where they go to his apartment and they knock on his door because they got that, you know, that FBI list of books or whatever. And you see John Doe at the end of the hallway, and then he pulls his gun, shoots at them, and then runs. That whole chase scene, I think, is excellent. It's kind of shot like, it almost feels like it's like those one take kind of shots. I don't think it is, but it feels like that whole chase scene's pretty detailed of like how they're getting to where they're going, and then they ultimately end up in the alley. And he kind of, he strikes down on him, and he kind of has him in that moment where he could have killed him, but he didn't.
The library scene where Morgan Freeman is doing research at the beginning of the movie. I really like that scene. I like that, like, they're setting the tone for the character. I like how he's, you know, bullshitting with the security guards playing poker. You've got all these books, and you guys are sitting there playing cards, and he says, "How's this for culture?" And he plays the classical music, and it just proceeds to show Morgan Freeman doing his thing. I really like that scene. And I also thought it was funny how many things they print, and how they get to the scene that Cap just explained, because of his library records. Like, that wouldn't even be a thing these days. Like, you just go online and read the books. Anyway, my favorite scene in The Master, and maybe not my favorite scene, but a scene I wanted to ask a question to you guys, is when Joaquin Phoenix fights the dude at the end of the movie, and he goes and fights the guy outside the like convenience store or whatever it is. Do you think that he's fighting him to like defend his honor like he was prior in the movie? Or do you think that he's fighting him because he agrees with him and he knows it, and he is kind of releasing his anger because he knows he's lost some of his personal opportunities?
I think both. I think that's a good point. I think it could be a bit of both of that.
Yeah,
he still wants to defend them, but yeah, he's mad because he's shattering his like new world that he's living in, you know.
Let's just talk about too when they wrestle around on the ground, because nobody mentioned that as a scene. I love that, because we love guy love. We love guy love here, and that's I would protect any of you.
We love guy love.
Or
we do.
That exactly what Beerware asked. What is he protecting? His friend, or the integrity of what happened to him, or what was done to him? That's friendship, y'all. It's our favorite movies. That's the greatest movies, have friendship in it and guy love. So even
who's the best body anyway?
We had best hair this week. We're starting to realize that our thread members don't agree with each other always. We are different, and we respect each other's opinions. And sometimes I think we love to be on the same page. We love to all agree on stuff, which we do so much, but other times we don't agree with each other. And I'm going to tell you right now about what film I like the most, because of something that is personal to me, because of something I like, that is something that great movies has taught me. And I'm going to go ahead and bring back this fallen soldier, Donnie Darko, Se7en, The Master. What is better? What is the greatest film of all those three? The Master, folks. I love The Master so much that I think it is one of my top 10 favorite films. I've discovered this rewatching it, and that's my vote for tonight, folks.
Yeah, this was a tough one. Both movies are really great. I do really like Se7en. I think Se7en is one of those movies that gets you the first time that you watch it. It's got an incredible ending. But I think that the Master is like just such an opportunity with those two on screen together to shine, and they just had so many great resources to work with. I think that maybe David Fincher in Seven, it's a little earlier in his career, and I just think that the Master kind of will hold up over time a little better. And of course, Philip Seymour Hoffman, his performance is one of my favorites ever in that movie. So I'll say the Master.
We're going to go
Doc,
to the Doc.
Doc.
And Doc, I know Donnie Darko was actually, you know what I said about us all agreeing with each other? That was one of our, I think, favorite movies as friends to watch with each other. And I still hope, because you're the last remaining Thread member that has their mulligan, that you might actually bring Donnie Darko back. What did you think about this matchup here? Personally, I thought Seven had way too much rain in it, Doc. Lots of rain in Seven. What do you think, Doc?
I think that the rain in Seven was actually purposeful, and that they wanted it to be a very dark and cynical movie, which for 1995, any movie in the 90s is not dark or cynical. There's some that are, and they actually do stand out. But for the most part, I feel like 90s movies were pretty like upbeat, positive. So like this movie stands out in that sense. Rewatching it, I enjoyed it, and there were parts about it that, like, as I mentioned, I didn't remember who the killer was and the mastermind and stuff. And there's things about it that it's a detective thriller, which is fun. The characters are, we kind of broke them down. They're not too deep, but they serve a purpose. I do like the use of Seven Sins. I like that it's a serial killer movie. I'm a sucker for that. I've admitted in previous episodes. And it is kind of this like borderline horror film-esque movie. And it's a cynical and it's a dark movie, and it's one where the villain wins, and I think there's something to be said for that. So that said, though, like, I did enjoy Seven. It's a good movie. But I don't know, man, rewatching The Master, and I know that I was a critic against it and was bummed that, Donnie Darko didn't get in. And I think what you hit the nail on the head. All it is kind of saying, like, it's more of a comfort food movie, Donnie Darko. It's one that we have ties to, and it's one that, it's if we're like something like Indiana Jones or Star Wars or Back to the Future, any of those movies that I grew up on, were on this thread. And if somebody kicked it off, I would be hurt by that. In rewatching, The Master, it's a great fucking movie. And honestly, when I started looking into watching it again and thinking back, I think one of the things that I brought up last episode was like, it's only got a 7.2 on IMDb. I think that there's, like, you brought it up earlier, like the Scientologists. I wonder if they went after them. I wonder if something happened, because
that's going to be a fact. That's going to be a fact here, because they have proof that they go hard on people. They actually have a term for it in Scientology. It's called defector.
Defector.
Yeah, defector. Yeah.
Yep. So I think there's something to that, and so the IMDb score doesn't explain what it is. And I think when this comes down to it, I think what I'm realizing with myself, even though Seven is a great storyline, it's interesting, it ties it really well together, it has that great fucking ending. I really appreciate in my older age, and I think now as of being on the thread, and I love acting performances, and this is top notch. This is electric performances by some of our favorite actors in their heyday, and it's incredible. And I liked Cap's point about it standing the test of time, because I think it will, because I think it gives a little insight into why and how cults get developed and why people believe the things that they do. And I think that's important for us to kind of study as a society.
Hey, Doc, what Freddie stood up for in The Master, is that what people do in the masses when they're in a cult? Like, selfishly stand up for something that helped them?
Yeah,
that's
because dude, look at what's going on right now in politics, because people are picking a side, and if you don't, if you're bringing facts to them about, they're true believers. They're not paying attention to facts. They're not paying attention to evidence. And the fact that they've chosen a side, if you challenge that, they get defensive to that, and they want to stand up for what they have decided that they believe in. And when you are all in like that, yeah, and so especially a character like Freddie Quill, where he doesn't really know any other ways to address those challengers other than through fisticuffs, and that's how he kind of deals with that. So yeah, man, we see that, you know, we share tweets on that, and we share, you know, text messages on Karens and people getting into fights and arguments because of what they believe politically and stuff, and it's ridiculous. But that's where we're at, and that's who we are. So my vote is master. I said I was going to use one word. It's one word, master.
So far, it's a sweep, folks. Beware. What do you got to say?
All excellent points for the master. Going into the podcast, I kind of felt like I was strongly leaning one way towards Se7en, and you guys really, while I enjoyed the master and I thought that it was really well done and the point is really well received and well told, I just feel personally that I liked Se7en just from an entertainment value more. I felt like there's more bang for your buck, if you will, in that movie. Maybe it's because I have only seen The Master once, but I think that means something. You know, you can watch Se7en a million times. I've seen that movie a lot. I definitely didn't forget any of those details, and it still made me cringe going through that movie. And I don't even really like horror movies. It's definitely got a horror tinge to it, and it is so well done, so well told, excellent acting. I believe Cap said it earlier. Every you know, piece of the story is taking you from one spot to the next, and it really, you know, grabs you and takes you along. And I just feel like it's an upper echelon, you know, horror, drama, thriller, whatever you want to call it.
Do you think we love that mystery that is told so well the first time? Isn't that part of greatness? Like, we obviously know we love man love and guy love, but that mystery that is like the first time it just leaves you like, oh my God, how did you think of that? Is that what has stood up against the test of time with Se7en?
No, actually, I don't think it's that. I really don't. And I think that's like, to me, when we did Shawshank, that's one of the reasons I didn't vote for Shawshank, because I felt like I already know what's coming for the most part. I know how it ends, and so, like, you know, it felt a little lackluster. And so maybe the movie, it didn't have as much of an edge. Where this one, I knew exactly what was coming, and I never lost the edge because it wasn't about that very end necessarily. Maybe it is, but like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I don't know. I guess so. I guess not.
I mean, Se7en moves like a train in comparison with Shawshank.
I was
right. You know, as far as like rewatching, yeah.
7 days for 20 years.
It's fast-paced movie.
It's
got a great pace to it.
All right. Beware, just to confirm, your vote is for Se7en for the creator film of Se7en versus the Master. Is that correct?
Yep. I think you're getting more than just acting. I think you've got a better story, a better, more pound for pound movie, if you will.
Why don't we go to our music man, Savage, to talk a little bit about that intro, because he usually handles us with the soundtrack. Savage, your vote and a little bit about that music.
That intro is the 9 Inch Nails remix of Closer, where it's not like the version of it. It's the like this kind of like more I almost said spacey. It is a more spacey version of it.
And wet. To quote Training.
It is wet. It's
wet.
damp. It's damp. and crossed with like mixing of showing some unnamed fingers being like shaved off the finger.
Hey, a lot of shows started doing this intro, but 10 years later.
Sure. Think about Dexter with like the hot sauce on the eggs, man. Like they show like the most fucked up things in just the intro once like the movie starts.
It's like desensitizing you to what you're about to see.
Yeah, you're about to get fucked.
Savage.
What it's telling you.
Was that Trent Reznor's like intro to producing for Hollywood? Like for
well,
film?
no, he started doing Fincher movies. The master's Johnny Greenwood from the guitarist, one of the guitarists from Radiohead that does the whole score for that.
He did the master?
He did the master, yeah. Trent Reznor ended up doing, The Social Network, doing Gone Girl, doing a bunch of the David Finch, Aaron Sorkin movies that have been coming out that are some of the best movies ever that have been coming out in the last 10 years.
Honestly, Savage, real quick too. I actually almost went for 7. My written notes are 7, but I made a choice to go other direction.
So the master wins, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll move forward into the next bracket battle. But right now, folks, I'm shaking up a hat that has another 2 great movies in it. So while we go to that short hat song produced by Beware, I'm going to shuffle these up really, really nice for you, folks. Oh.
It's a hat, it's a hat, it's a hat.
Let's go do that. Let's go do that. Let's go do that. Let's go do that.
Take your hat off.
Excuse me?
Let's go do that. Let's go do that. Let's go do that.
It's a hat, it's a hat, it's a hat.
I'm shuffling good. Okay, we got a bigger one tonight. It's going to be left side of the bracket, I think. It's not upside down. It is upside down. It's not backwards. I see the front of it, and I'm flipping it. Oh, my God. I love this. I love this so much, folks. This is great because what we have is our thread member who's just surprised me with the vote, voting 7 over the master, which I really thought we were teammates with the master. It doesn't matter. The master is moving forward. It has beat tonight 7, and it's moving forward to the next round. But what we have next week is our thread member Savage's double viewing that he had with his father. So we have the usual suspects versus Rushmore. Now, Rushmore is a comedy, but there's so much more dynamic in it, and there's so much more cinematography in it, and it's Wes Anderson, who should be considered with the greatness and out of cult classics. We have him going against what we've just debated, and some of our thread members have voted for 7 being one of those movies that has a special effect the first time you watch it. A mystery, a thriller, a gangster film. Folks, next week for episode 16, we have the usual suspects versus Rushmore. Our thread member Savage's double viewing with his father, where he showed him 2 impactful, 2 of the greatest films of all time in one night. And as a young man, I suppose, and I also too, some of my biggest highlights of being a young teen were watching movies that I wasn't quite ready for or supposed to. I was enthralled with movies like that, like It and other movies that hit you upside the head. What about Usual Suspects? No spoilers. This is one of the best movies to watch for the first time ever. Its best matchup it could go against is probably Shawshank Redemption for the best movie to watch for the first time ever. But next week we have The Usual Suspects versus Rushmore. A comedy, no doubt, but with so many dynamics and great actors in it, and another great director, Wes Anderson, versus Usual Suspects, directed by who, Doc?
Ryan Singer.
And Savage, has he made it on the list other than Usual Suspects?
No.
Okay.
No, this is his only one. Also, I wanted to add that
Apocalypse didn't make the list, but
right. The master would go up against the winner of Interstellar versus Fargo. So which is another mindfuck of a matchup as well. Just to kind of put that out there.
Great matchup.
You heard it here, folks.
Real quick,
Doc. The Doc's in.
The more I think about it, man, the fact that your dad set you down and had you watch back-to-back Usual Suspects and 7 is awesome. Because I was just thinking, like, I can't wait to show my son those movies and, like, experience, like, that build up, that ending with them. And so that's awesome. And then it's awesome, too, that we have these movies back-to-back.
A lot of guy love going on here. A lot of people talking about some great movies that we love so much. And we're figuring this out. We are figuring this out. We're going to find the greatest movie of all time, aren't we, folks? Tune in next week. The Usual Suspects versus Rushmore.
Guy Love the Podcast, signing off.
Glove.
Good morning.
Morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Well, it's very, homey.
What? Are you kidding? We got us a family here.
I hope hope you realize how you've hurt my feelings.
I'm afraid to just true to our mouth. Next place.
Just take it easy, man.
I'm from Wisconsin.
Yeah, waving the fucking gun around?
Commerce, you are.
Look, I made a mistake, all right? It doesn't make any difference anyway.
Hey, I'm letting it go. But don't say it doesn't matter. Every line matters.
Get off my back!
Don't fuck with my plan!
And like that, he's gone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Our Thread Podcast, bringing our content to you, featuring all it is.
It's official, old buddy. Who has been.
Beware.
From then on, he was known as Benny the Jet Rodriguez.
The Doc.
You're the doc, Doc.
The Pep.
Oh, if you already know the answers to your questions, then why ask? Pig fuck!
And myself, Savage.
I'm 6'5", 220, and there's two of me.